Good day, and welcome to Reputation Matters webinar. My name is Chanel Kemp, and today I will be talking about the 5 communication lessons that we can learn from millennials. So during the COVID-19 pandemic and being locked down at home, it is important that we still communicate to our different teams when we are virtually working from home. So who best to learn from than the millennials? They are the individuals who prefer to send WhatsApps, SMSs, and use their phones and other technology to keep in touch. Your organization and the different generations. It is no secret that different generations have different preferences when it comes to communication styles, methods, and channels. And for the first time ever, organizations have to manage 4 different generations in one office space. The way we communicate with these different generations also differs, and studies define these generations differently. So some studies have a 10-year time frame between the different generations, others a 15, and others a 20-year time frame. It doesn't matter how you define your generations, as long as you know what their preferences are. So firstly, I will take you through the different generations and how we define them at Reputation Matters. So the first generation that we are having a look at is your baby boomers. This is the generation that were born between 1964 and the years to follow. They are 55 years of age and older. Now, the baby boomers prefer face-to-face communication and eye contact. Baby boomers were the individuals who entered the workforce without there being cell phones, smartphones, emails. So that is why their preferred communication style will be face-to-face communication. The second generation is Generation X. Now this generation is 40 to 54 years of age, and they were born between 1965 and 1997. So when they entered the workforce, emails and faxes and telephone lines were already there, and they prefer email communication. And then this is the generation that this webinar is about, the Millennials. They were born between 1980 and 1994, which makes them between 25 and 39 years of age. The millennial generation love using their smartphones, they love texting, and this is their preferred method of communication. So the final generation entering the workforce is Generation Z. They are individuals aged between 18 to 24 and were born 1995 to 2001, which means that they are still busy studying or are freshly out of university and entering the workforce. They were literally born with cell phones in their hand, which means that they like communication to be short and sweet and consist of videos and images. So you need to capture their attention and hold it for about 2 to 3 minutes, give them the information that they need. So just to summarize these 4 generations that we work with in the workforce currently is your baby boomers who like face-to-face communication, Generation X who prefer emails, millennials who like texting, and then we've got Generation Z who like videos and images. These are the 4 generations that are currently in the workforce. So before we get to the fun facts, whatever the case may be, there is no right way or no wrong way to communicate, only a preferred way to communicate. So it's important to remember that the different generations and the information that I've just provided you with is not necessarily true for each and every member of that specific generation. So not everyone fits into these boxes. It is simply a guideline. But unfortunately, with the nationwide lockdown due to COVID-19, most of us are homebound. So this means that we will all be forced to use some form of virtual communication method and style for the next few weeks. So for businesses to remain as functional as possible, it is crucial to optimize this virtual office space and to take these facts that we learn from millennials and to apply them daily in order to still communicate with your team. Before we go into millennial communication, here are some fun facts. Millennials are seen as the instant gratification generation. Now, this means that they like to be rewarded, and some of the baby boomers feel that they need a promotion every 6 months. Millennials and Generation Z are your multitaskers. They will have more than one screen open, WhatsApp on the one screen, work on the other screen, and be busy with more than one thing at once. Like I just said, Generation Z is the first generation to be born into technology. But interestingly, new studies have shown that besides the fact that they like their cell phones, images, videos, and games, they also prefer face-to-face communication. They like to make that connection. As I've indicated, baby boomers are not very fond of millennials. However, some of the baby boomers have raised these millennials. So it's important to keep that respect aspect intact when we communicate with all of the different generations. So here are 5 tips that characterize millennial communication. And these 5 tips and characteristics can be used when we are in a virtual office space during this lockdown period. Tip number 1. Topics should be brief but meaningful. Millennials prefer communication to be brief, meaningful, and engaging. What we can learn from this is to provide enough detail, but to keep it to the point and to stay positive. There are a lot of negative messages and a lot of information coming through at the moment during this COVID-19 lockdown. So keep your business topics short, brief, to the point, and meaningful. Tip number 2 would be to maximize text messages and send WhatsApps. So you would have remembered that I said that this is the preferred method for millennials to communicate. So keep in mind that all of your workforce is at home with their families. So in order to keep that communication going, use WhatsApps and text messages to communicate, because that is short and sweet and people can reply on their own time. During this lockdown phase, mobile phones will be one of the biggest assets for organizations. So utilize this to send messages and keep in touch, but also keep in mind that there is a lot of communication. So stay to the point. The third tip that we can take from the millennials is that respect is key. So in general, millennials prefer to feel respected when all the generations are communicating with them. When we link it to COVID-19, the entire world is influenced by this pandemic. So we should not only communicate in a respectful manner, but we should also respect the measures that government put in place to protect businesses and to limit the spread of this virus. Also remember that we need to respect the time of our workforce, of our colleagues and employees. So although millennials function on a 24/7 cycle and they like to have all the information all the time, regardless of business hours, remember that respect is key, and remember to put strict measures in place on when we do communicate on our mobile phones. Tip number 4 that we can take from the Millennial book is to contribute to the greater good. Millennials have a strong sense of responsibility for the greater good and committing to the social bottom line. They are also known to be environmental activists. So focus on spreading messages with meaning, because how we communicate during this pandemic is crucial. Keep your employees of all ages motivated and focus on communicating the correct messages and statistics. Steer clear of fake news. So the fifth and the final tip that we can get from millennials is that they are loyal individuals. Now is the time to stand together, empower and inform your workforce in order to equip them for this lockdown, and use these 5 tips to do that. Remember to keep your topics brief and meaningful. Maximize texts and WhatsApps and use mobile phones as the preferred way to communicate during this lockdown. Also remember to keep in mind that respect is key. Enforce those office hours even if you are working from home, because remember, our colleagues have families at home that they also need to take into consideration. Also remember that all communication should contribute to the greater good. And remember that your millennial individuals are loyal, but also so is your workforce during this time. So let's focus on staying loyal towards each other and towards our country. And that's it for millennial communication for the day. If you need any more guidance on crisis communication during this crisis COVID-19 pandemic, or any other communication assistance that we can give you, please contact us on research at reputationmatters.co.za. There's also a telephone number 021 790 0208. You can visit our website, follow us on Facebook and on Twitter for more information. It was lovely to have this chat with you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and I look forward to speaking to you real soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.